Yo, did you guys get those gummies in the mail?
Yeah, I got it from I got them, man.
They're health gummies. They're vitamin C, right?
Oh, I don't know. I want to try it out, but I'm afraid to do this episode after we have them.
I don't care.
Here
we go.
All right, fuck it.
I got pineapple.
Fucker.
I got tangerine.
Welcome to wook+live. Welcome back. Hey guys, how's it going? Fucking got a great show.
Yeah.
Look at that energy. Fucking take a gummy and the energy goes right out.
We always have a great show, don't we?
I don't know. We'll see. Ask me again at the end of this.
I think it's gonna be spectacular.
Oh yeah.
I was really hoping it was banana and it was pineapple.
I got cherry. Wasn't too bad.
I like cherry.
Yeah.
I got strawberry. It was delicious.
Oh, that's like the best Starburst flavor.
It is.
Oh,
wait, no, yeah, you're completely right.
Orange too. I like orange.
Man, I
Yeah, I
discovered
like
tangerine. I discovered tangerine, and I'm not looking back.
Starburst flavors you use by color though, not like fruit, right? I guess orange is both, but like I always just like pink, yellow, orange.
That is true.
What are we doing? What's up?
Nothing. I'm just trying on different hats. What do you think?
Blame it on the acid. There isn't any acid. Oh, no? How come? Oh, yeah. How come everything is
see what else is on.
So weird?
Come on, take the ticket. We're busy here.
Goddamn head off right there in the parking lot, and then they got all kinds of holes in her and sucked out the blood. They were after the pineal gland, I think. Yeah. No, how's your mama?
Ignore it.
So I got exciting news. We got Benjy Eisen coming on. I'm gonna go ahead and bring him in. We've had Benjy on the show. He's one of my favorite guests. He's also a Wookiee recipient for Best Storyteller. He is a New York Times bestselling author and the manager, Bill Kreutzmann. Benjy, welcome to the show. How's it going?
Hey, good to be here. Yeah, I was just rifling through my prep work, and so you got me 5 minutes early. That's fine. I'm down.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you got to go on the fly and keep things moving. So
you mean you have to improvise?
We'll do it live.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So how's everything, Benjy? How you been?
Things are great. I mean, you'd almost, I haven't seen people for a little while. I haven't, been within 6 feet of many people for a long time and things like that. But all things considered, I'm doing great.
Yeah, and it feels like we're starting to come around the corner, right? So hopefully we'll start seeing live music soon. I don't know how soon, but,
Well,
hopefully.
we can still see live music on live streams. Right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. There's been some really good streams.
Yeah.
Llama just got Goose tickets today, so for I don't know when that is, July or something. So it's pretty exciting.
Where's that?
I don't know, Llama.
It's in Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
Nice.
Yeah, but it's
you, Llama.
Is it true that you fly? Is it true that when you fly to Juice, you fly on a mustache? Is that the way it works?
I think so.
Mustache turn?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to work on mine for takeoff.
Nice. I think we've all been inspired by Juice during quarantine.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, I think you're rocking awesome facial hair. Usually, we've had some really good ones. Brandon Wennard from Bro Bible has a really epic beard, but I like the mustache look you have.
It's layers.
Yeah, it's layered, right? There's depth to it. I like that. So I don't remember. I wanted to go back and look at some of the stories and things that we talked about last time you're on, but then I realized that we probably have a whole different group. So I'm kind of just saying we go for it, and if we repeat some things, that's fine. I'm
glad you said that, because I have no idea what we talked about last time.
I don't either, and I didn't go back, so we're kind
something
of
about an iguana and playing drums.
Oh yeah, the iguana. Oh yeah, that was down in South America. Yeah,
it was mushroom.
Billy rips off his shirt and starts playing. I have that stored in my that. My memory sucks, but that's one thing I'll never forget. I'll never forget.
Yeah, no, that's a great story. But what I realized, I wanted to kind of go back earlier with you, because I think I first got familiarized when you were doing things you had done a couple of things with, first I guess was Deal. And then you did some things with Osiris, but I actually don't know your origin and like where you got into writing and what your first gig was and how you kind of broke into this part of the scene. So I don't know if you want to go into it, but I'm kind of curious about how you got to where you are now. Like, where did you start? What was your first gig?
Story. Well, okay, I'll play it on fast, and then I'll slow down at one specific moment.
Perfect.
Which let me deal. I mean, I started out. I never wanted to write about music. I always agreed with Kurt Vonnegut with the quote. Actually, I don't know if Kurt Vonnegut said it or Frank Zappa. It always gets misattributed. But dancing, writing about music is like dancing to architecture, and that's kind of how I've always felt. And I never really wanted to write about music. I always wanted to write. But then after in college, actually, I got offered $75 from I was on online early on Rec Music Fish, and I was doing something called Benjy's Digest, which was just kind of filtering out all the bullshit posts on Rec Music Fish, like back before before it was all web page based, when it was like this news group. And so I filtered out all the bullshit and have this digest. And I would write, like everybody else there, I'd write reviews of the shows I went to, since the music wasn't able to be as quickly distributed.
2 weeks
you
minimum.
go on 2 weeks minimum. You'd go on Rec Music Fish to find out, because somebody would be in their computer lab, stealth spawn at 1 or 2 a.m. going, and then they did this, and then they did that, and so that was me going to the computer lab to read about it and then to write about it after the ones I saw. And out of nowhere, somebody contacted me and said, "Hey, I'll pay you $75 if you review Fish at Hershey Park Stadium." It was the show right before Clifford Ball, and they wanted it.
Or was it a magazine or a website, or?
It was a newspaper. It was ironically titled The Press Republican. It was a newspaper in Plattsburgh, New York, who was going to do a special newspaper. Yeah, The Press Republican.
No, that is a brilliant trivia question, because you'd be like, which newspaper hired Benjy to write about fish? the Press Republican. You'd look at it and be like, that's the obvious wrong answer.
Yeah, totally. And the funny thing too, so they did a newspaper that was special just for Fish coming to town for, to Plattsburgh for the Clifford Ball, and they were handing them out for free out on the runway. But so they paid me $75, and at the time, when I was I don't know, 19, 20, I was like, this is amazing. And they gave me free tickets to the show. And I was like, this is great. And then from there, it kind of, and the guy actually I think he called my house, probably because I was running late with deadline or something. He called my house, and my mom picks up the phone and is talking to him. And he's like, your son's going to write for Rolling Stone one day.
So wait, how old were you at this point?
I don't know. It was 96. So I don't know.
But I mean, were you
20, around 20?
Okay.
Wow.
No, I'm just trying to visualize it in my mind. So that's cool. That's your first writing gig. I mean, did it pick up right away after that, or was that just kind of like plant the seed and then you kind of backed off for a while?
Well, it picked up from there. Dean Budnick, who still runs, he runs Relics magazine, but he just launched jambands.com at the time, which now Pete Shapiro owns. But at the time, he launched it and he reached out to me and he said, "Do you want to write a column?" And the other columnist was Jesse Jarno was one of the columnists, and Zizitz was one of the David Steinberg was one of the columnists. Nice. So I said sure, and the very first one that I did was like very it was like, you know, talking about there's other almost like the Beyond the Pond podcast now is like there's other bands out there besides Fish that are good. I at least I
tend to be myopic.
I think no, but the thing was that it was because I myself I couldn't I'd put on another album from somebody else and halfway through I'd be like, cool, but why am I listening to this when I could be listening to a new?
I am unapologetically that way. Like I tried for a couple of years. I'll listen to The Dead or Mo or Goose or whatever from time to time, but I'm still 75% Fish, and I don't give a fuck. I just know who I am. I know what I like, and there's enough catalog out there that I respect that people don't do that and that they have other interests, but I'm not going to apologize for listening to the music I enjoy.
No, of course not. And at the time too, you know, a college kid just discovering them, it was, you know, a brand new world. And I'm getting, you know, 2 or 3 shows every day by Blinks and Postage. And so it was, and I would do these 5-hour drives from college back to home. And I would just, you know, want to be and get, you know, smoke a joint and be like, why am I listening to, you know, whatever? And it was almost stuff that like Trey would kind of point out to, or bands that they were covering, you know, and I'd be like, cool, I want to go down this rabbit hole. You know, King Crimson, I'll listen to this. And you put on a little bit of that. You're like, cool, I see why they're influenced by it. But now I want to hear, you know, I want to
hear Fish do it, their interpretation.
Yeah, let's hear Dave's Energy Guide, you know? So
those guys, though, before we get off of this, because I'm really curious about this. It seems like an all-star club of the early days, right? Like you're talking about Shapiro and Zizix and Jarno and like you. Like, was it a professional, just like acquaintance that you were familiar with everybody? Like, just because you're all writing for the same, you know, things, or did you become friends and establish like relationships? Because now, fast forward 20, 30 years, like, you know, you guys are like, you know, recognizable names when it comes to people who write and document and record and are in that portion of the jam scene.
Well, it's funny because I mean, Shapiro and I talked an hour ago.
That's true. When I called you the other day, you're like, "Oh, let me call you back." I'm on the phone with Shapiro. I was like,
"Yeah." Well, he and I have been talking every day because we're doing something that one of those things like I can't talk about yet, but just about to be able to talk about. But yeah, because of that, but it's like.
That's why we encourage our guests to drink. You start at the top of the hour, and everybody's like, "I can't divulge." And by the end of it, they're like, "We're going to the moon."
Let me play you thread.
Actually,
it's Billy on the moon.
I have a few drinks here just so I don't need to get up and refresh them. So there you go. Ask me at the end of the show. But anyway, so he and I stay in touch. But now we're in touch daily because of this. Jarno and I don't know. I don't think we were friends. No, I think we were probably friends before then. But then, you know, like it was a small scene at the time and geographically, like Zizix lived in Seattle, you know, so like it was only through like email and things like that. But with Jarno, he and I mean, he's around my same age and we would, you know, I remember when I would go into the Relics office, then a little bit later on, and Jarno was there, and like he and I became friends, and you know would go to see Disco Biscuits and smoke a joint out separate together, and you know things like that. But so it was a mixed bag. It was a little bit of everything. But after that first column where I was serious about, you know, if you want to listen to other bands, there's other bands out there, blah blah blah. After that, the writing it was almost like I went Tom Robbinsy with it, where I started writing about like, you know, I think I wrote this one called How to Enjoy a Divided Sky, which is all about like when you're making out with a girl, like it's beyond words and the, you know, the blah, 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 you know, like all. And so then I started getting a little experimental with it.
Are your old pieces still accessible or are they archived somewhere?
Yeah, but you have to kind of, I should put them up. You have to kind of dig, because recently I was looking for one called How I Accidentally Changed a Fish Song Forever about the hood chant. and then my favorite.
Wait, that wasn't you though, was it?
It's two people. The idea came from me being stoned in my car in college, and then the actual it was Darius Zelter from the Fishnet was handing out flyers with crowd ideas on that. But he went on Fishnet and he said, "Does anybody have ideas? We're gonna prank the band at Red Rocks." You know, one of the ideas that somebody else had was like during the pause in Divided Sky, everybody turns around, you know, and turns their back to the. And so I was around that time. I've told this story before on other internet things, but yeah, I mean, I was driving around. I was in college, driving around, listening to a ton of Fish and amusing myself, you know, and with little, you know, whatever you do when you're that age and you amuse yourself. And I'm driving in my car, definitely, you know, like high around Northampton, Massachusetts, and I was in this like, you know, James Brown little thing where when people would talk, I would really annoyingly be like, "Huh." You know, like, come on. Yeah. I would do like shit like that. And so then
when you're young, not like when you're in your 30s, 40s
I mean,
now.
I still do annoying things, but at the time that was it specifically. And then so I was in that little phase of and they did Harry and I and I was like, oh, hood. And I was like, that's fun. And I cracked myself up. I'm like, that was funny. I told my best friend Matt McGuire it. He laughed. And then like that week was when Darius went on Fishnet and said, "Does anybody have crowd ideas?" So I put that on there. Yeah, I put that on there thinking, you know, like that, like, oh, this is really funny. This would be a funny prank. And I was at Red Rocks when they did it. And I was like, you know, at the time, not thinking you ruined a song, thinking it was a one-time thing. I was like, that's really funny. The little inside joke that I had in my car is suddenly, you know, at Red Rocks.
It's brilliant. It's such a good idea like that deserves
on top of that,
out.
it's like, wait, hold on one second. What's this go? Oh, there we go. Technical issue. And so I'm looking around and thinking this must be what Fish feels like, because half their song, you know, half their shit's inside jokes. And so, you know, like, it's like, oh, like, you know, it must be what they feel like when they do a song and a little hidden meaning or this or that. And then at Alpine Valley, you know, like a sizable portion of the crowd continued it when they played Hood. And I remember my friend Matt looked at me. He goes, "You asshole!" He's like,
"What did you do?
You just ruined the song." And then years later, I told Mike Gordon it. Years later, like at the end of a conversation, I told it to Mike, and he goes, or something like that.
I mean, I imagine from the musician standpoint, like it's part flattering, but it has to be frustrating too, because like they write and choreograph and orchestrate so much of their music and so much of the experience. Although they're always talking about the crowds
I don't
involvement.
believe that. Trey is pro Woo. I mean, I think Trey likes the spontaneous, the clapping and stash. You know, I mean, it's fucking great.
The best thing about the Woo is I actually told this to Joel from Humphreys. We were walking around outside Lands, and he goes, "What do you think of the Woo?" And I said, "The best thing about the Woo is that it got me off the hook." You know, like, because now no one's mad about the Hood chant. Now everyone wants to stop the Woo.
From Hood to Woo.
Yeah, from Hood to Woo. The Wu-Tang Clan.
Travis, technical note. We're gonna break the fourth wall, but you keep an eye on who's in and out, because I'm really engaged with this conversation. So I'm giving up controls. I don't know if Llama or Chad want to contribute or whatever, but that's on you, Travis. Benjy. So before I forget, because we were talking about your archive, I think there's a opportunity to repurpose some of that writing. I think we should take these experimental early writings that you did, and I don't know, repurpose them into some sort of like live action play out or dramatic reading on the channel or something. But like that kind of stuff needs to be read or heard again, I think.
Or
I need to go back and dig them up.
Or may I?
Yeah.
May I write a song to them?
I don't know if they rhyme, but yeah, I'll
it doesn't matter. Did Dylan rhyme? No.
No, yeah. Maybe that's why I can't write song lyrics, because I write A-B-A-B. You know? Like diphthongs.
We could also animate them.
Yeah.
We're gonna one of the things we wanted to share again tonight, we're gonna take a quick breather, was an old bit that goes with the theme we did, was LST. So a few people watching probably are familiar, But we wanted to bring it back in tribute to this theme and episode. And this is the last time we animated something while under the influence. So maybe we could do this with your old writing.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Tiger, llama, sloth.
Friends, oh my friends, are we ready?
On the count of 1. 1.
Keith Moon?
Don't get your knickers in a knot.
What are you doing up here?
I enjoy the view.
Because you can see for miles and miles.
Bloody idiot.
Holy shit, he's an apple.
Why did you do that?
I ate shitty jokes.
Oh.
What's your favorite joke?
Pete Solo Records.
Did his love not open your door?
Bloody fool.
Dude, what the f***? Those are my dudes.
Well, you'll meet some morons, chap.
Change them back.
Want to save them?
Yes, save us.
What do I have to do?
Beat me in a drum off.
And if I lose?
Apples away. I'll go first.
Here goes it.
What the hell?
I'm a fucking sloth. I'm not fast like a tortoise. What happened?
Moons mean magic, man.
Stop. M's are spooky.
M's?
Yeah, man, they look angry.
My mother makes me munch M&Ms.
My mother makes me munch M&Ms.
My mother makes me munch M&Ms.
Ah, Turbo Slam.
Dude, it's our tree. Nap time.
So hungry.
I still don't know if I love or hate that. It's one of those ones that I can't make my mind up
I love
about.
it more now watching it the second time, or actually that's 20th time, but like I love it more.
It's
now.
very well done. It's got several layers of humor to it. The more you know about Keith Moon or other different things, it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
All right, Benji. Dealer's choice. Deal author's choice. Unfortunately, there's not an unlimited amount of time we have here, and I have different directions we could take this conversation. I either want to get into some of your opinions about our favorite bands. Yes, I was going to share that too, Travis, and the answer is also yes. It actually was 5 minutes ago, but this should be kicking in right about now. I'm curious. So one way, is we get some of your hot takes on some of the bands we love. B is we stay down memory lane and get into how you were introduced to Bill and establish that relationship. And because I could dive into there too. Like I find that fascinating.
Hey, Wook, can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
The five of us all give Benji one band that we love, and he just says yes or no, like awesome or you're stupid.
Like does he agree with us or not?
Right. I'll start. All right, you ready, Benji?
Wait, Benji, you good?
Yeah, I'm good. This is great.
You just said sure. All right, Benji, I'll start. Ween.
Yes, but it took me. I have my faces with them, but overall, a resounding yes, of course.
All right, Llama.
You have to be an asshole to say no to Ween.
Thank you.
Goose.
I thought you were gonna say war on drugs, based on your shirt, who I am absolutely, positively obsessed with.
Yes.
They're an obsession-worthy band. They're just the fucking best. But Goose is also great. Yeah, I mean, I say thumbs up the Goose.
All right, who's next? Travis.
Can't put Travis on the spot, man.
Yeah, this is gonna be
All right, fine. Look.
This is the intellectual one.
I don't know. I don't want to stick with another jam band, but I kind of am really curious of your take on Twiddle, because that's like that's one of those ones that are polarizing. It seems.
So I think that the reason they're so polarizing is because they have such a god awful name. And, I think
of the turtle bit. Like, who's the comedian?
Well, I think of Tweedledee and Tweedledum, even though I'm like Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
Yeah.
But or Twiddle the handle, or whatever. But besides that, I saw them on Jam Cruise and a couple other times, and I appreciate what they do. I'm not there's one song from them actually that got played on Sirius XM a lot. I want to say Lost in the Pack, but that's a Trey tune. I can't recall it now, but it has that reggae-ish vibe. Like I could see them being like, touring with Slightly Stupid or something. I mean, they're fine. I don't have any. While I have most of my friends have strong opinions about them, and not necessarily positive ones. They're fine. I respect what they do, and I'm glad that they're doing what they're doing, because they're getting a little generation. They're getting a little group of kids in Vermont that don't have fish. And that are younger than that, and whatever, they're fine. They're fine.
I respect that essay on Twiddle right now.
That was a very very great thought out political answer.
It's diplomatic.
I agree, though. Twiddle,
it's diplomatic.
Twiddle has fans though that aren't in the rest of the jam scene, which you don't necessarily see that a ton with a lot of the other jam bands. But like they have a very hardcore, at least they did. I mean, I don't know if they still do, but like a hardcore base of fans that aren't even really into like Fish or anybody else.
Yeah, and I think it's going back to the name thing. It's like Twiddle and Pigeons playing ping pong are like, both bands. I was guilty of it too. Like you want to dislike them from the get go because of their name, but then again, you think of the older generation: Discubus, Humphreys McGee, Strinches Incident. Like names are never something that we're really good with our scene.
I like Twiddle though. I'll admit to seeing them double digits. I mean, not nearly as much as other bands, but I've seen double digit Twiddle shows, and I'm okay admitting that.
Whoa!
What's the song I'm thinking of then? Their big hit on Sirius. It's really good. It's a man. I wish I could
that one.
Lost in the Cold or
Lost in the Cold. Yeah, that's it.
I like Boink and Bonk or Apples. They're two of my favorite songs, but. Whatever. I'm probably just gonna lose half of my followers, but
I think we just started a Wook and Benji Twiddle podcast right now.
That's what the world needs. Is another podcast.
You know who really likes Twiddle is I did this cover story on Vampire Weekend, and I was in there like and Ezra Conan was he asked me some Grateful Dead questions because he knows my connection ability and about the book. Obviously, but then we started talking, and he really likes Twiddle. Big fan.
Good band.
Yeah.
Kev, you want to give a band out?
Yeah, Kev, you got a band, and Travis, you're not getting off the hook.
Any band?
Any band.
Blondie.
What'd you say?
Blondie.
So disappointed, Kev.
Jason
I wasn't going to go for the cheap joke. I wasn't going to go for the cheap joke.
Blondie. Hey, cheers to Blondie.
That actually would have been a perfect time to go with Radiators.
Yeah.
Oh
man.
Oh, speaking of,
I like the Radiators when I'm in Louisiana. When I'm in the state of Louisiana, I like them.
But he avoided my question.
Oh, Blondie. No, I like Blondie. Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a Blondie fan. I'd say that I like Blondie.
That's a fair answer. All right, so what do you want to do? You want to stay back in memory lane, or you want to give some takes on some hot fish and dead takes?
I mean, I would
let
love
Travis off the hook.
Yeah, I'm letting Travis off the hook.
I would love to give takes. I think maybe to finish the thread from before, I'll tell you how I met Billy, because that's a funny story. But then I'd like to do hot takes because that's more interesting.
All right, I think they're both. So let's do it.
All right.
Well, the way I met Billy, which isn't interesting to me anymore, but it is a funny story. It's a funny story, and it's also a drug story. So it's all those. But I interviewed him several times on the phone, and then I interviewed him on Jam Cruise, and he before the interview, I was doing it for Rolling Stone, and it became a really big thing online. You can still probably find it online, because he said that he thought that Jerry Garcia was going to end the Grateful Dead had he lived, or at least they were headed for a hiatus of some sort. And Jerry had some JGB plans, and it wasn't sustainable, and it was headed for something. But right before he gave me that interview, I meet him on the boat. He's like, "Oh, I recognize your energy and your voice. I remember you." He goes, "Listen, before you do this interview with me, what drugs do you have? Like, what drugs can you get me?" And I was like, "Well, I was like, I have, I have some of this, I have some of that." And he's like, "No," he's like, "I'm looking for, something else. Like, add weed." So I go, "Okay." Like, I go all over the boat looking for stuff, looking for my friends, and I was like, I come back to him. I was like, "Listen, I can get you anything, but it has to be after this interview," because I was like, I'm on the hook for this for Rolling Stone. If we don't do it, I'm gonna be in trouble, and I'll get you whatever you want afterwards. And then it occurred to me that some wook on the pool deck the night before gave me this drug that he made himself called an Oreo. And what it was a crushed. It was psilocybin crushed up with surrounded by Molly in a pill, so it had that white strip to it in the pill. And I just remember looking at him and being like, "Okay, sure," and I put it in my pocket. And I was like, maybe this will come in handy. Maybe there'll be some point where I'm like, "Oh yeah."
Maybe I'll run into a famous drummer who's looking for exotic drugs.
Yeah, possibly. or else 4 a.m. on night 5, it might be like this could be let's see how this goes. But I take it out to show it to Billy, and before he can even tell him what it is, he takes it and pops it in his mouth. He's like, "Cool."
What was that?
And then I realized that he was playing a show in about an hour. And I was like, and he, at the time, he's in his 60s at the time, and now he's about to turn 75, but he was in his 60s at the time. And I was just like, imagine the worst case scenario. So I go to him, can you play drums on a combination of ecstasy and mushrooms? And he looks at me.
Is that a candy flip?
Yeah, well, without any, like, he looks at me and very dryly, he just goes, "Do you know that I played drums in the Grateful Dead?" And I was like, "Okay, cool. You got this. You got this." And
that is the only response to that question.
Yeah, totally. And then we bonded, and then we bonded, and then from there that led to the book, and then everything from that after that. So. And
you're his manager now, right? You're like officially.
I manage his like projects, like Billy and the Kids, which is his band, and I manage specific things for him. Yeah.
Did you like writing more? Or I mean, I guess you're still writing, but like this is kind of a career shift, right? Like you weren't looking to be a talent or project manager, right? Like you were writing, and now you're doing more of the management side. Do you look? I mean, I assume you like it because you're doing it, but how do you compare? How do they compare? Which one do you like more?
Well, they both allow me to kind of write stories, with Billy, I was managing full time up and all aspects through fairly well. And then with Dead & Company obviously has amazing management. And so then I decided I was going to go off and do my thing. And now we combine worlds a lot. And we have something coming up, which I'm really, really excited about. And we just have, various things on the burner, but Billy and the Kids, which I'm really passionate about, allowed me to find some of my friends in music, like Aaron Madner from the Disco Biscuits, Reed Mathis, who you know, and I manage Reed and I manage all of his bands as well. And it just sort of led me down this path where I get to be creative. Like I've said no when certain bands have asked me to manage them. I said no because they're not really looking for you know, like a day-to-day guy that can go and be on the phone and do these things. And
right, the admin side of it.
Yeah, and I'm more of the creative side where, you know, with Reed, we brainstorm and I'm like, and then we should do a tour and we should call it this and we should do that. And you know, and then he puts his input. And same with Billy, like this thing that's coming up, you know, Billy and I talk a lot. And you know, of course, like anything, 80% of what we talk about never actually happens. But, you know, we go and we check. And then for whatever reason,
like every pitch meeting, by the way, for Wook+, it's like we just throw out the most outrageous ideas and throw spaghetti against the wall, and then that shit like this is what sticks. But yeah, but you know, you have to do that. That process. I completely agree with it. You got to put everything out there, talk about shit, and see what you could do, and go for it.
And I mean, in this past year, we've had so many ideas to, you know, we were going to have this big Billy and the Kids reunion at Stolen Roses, and then headlining Thursday night Peach Fest. And doing the Senior Theater in New Orleans. We were going to have, now I can say it because it didn't happen, but in New Orleans for the Senior Theater, we were going to have David Crosby sit in for you know, 2 songs.
That would have been awesome. That would have been so good.
And Billy Strings was going to sit in for a couple songs, and we were going to have all this, you know, it was going to be really cool. But then during the pandemic, we've talked, you know, a lot, sometimes about nothing at all, but then other times, you know, hey, we should do this, we should do that. And we put the gears in motion, but because the pandemic has been so, you know, things change all the time. I mean, we had some plans made for Hawaii where we were going to get the kids out there and do some shows and do some live streams and things like that. And then it calls me up a week later and he's like, we can't, you know, I'll do all the lead work and get really excited about it. And then he calls me up and he's like, we can't do it in November because there's going to be another surge and, you know, safety first. So,
I mean, probably the right decision, but a complete bummer. That would have been incredible. Yeah. One more. I promise we'll get off Billy and this thing, but I just all these questions keep coming in my mind. So I imagine with the creative involvement and that type of management, have you ever worked with Justin, or does he actively do anything with his dad, or is that kind of kept separate? Because he's for those who don't know, he does cinematography and he did, I don't know if he's still doing it, but he used to make those documentaries and he's always taking pictures and stuff. And he's a very creative person too. Do you guys ever collaborate or work together?
We don't know. I was gonna say we don't collaborate, but I wrote liner. He did a documentary from TRI Studios, Move Me Brightly, which was a tribute to Jerry, featuring, you know, members from the National and the Walkmen and Vampire Weekend and Joe Russo, Mike Gordon. And I did the liner notes for that. And that's about as close as we got to, you know, collaborating. He hired me to write the essay. But, you know, we obviously know each other and we're in touch. And I think that Justin, I was actually telling this to Billy, his father, the other day. Justin is a phenomenal director. And really,
I mean, I agree. Like, it's not just the name or the relationship. Like, he has, which you don't always, it's not always the case with famous kids of famous people, right? But he actually seems to have some natural skill and ability, or I don't know if it's natural, but developed skill and ability. So
I think it's also a cool story. Yeah, I agree with you. Like where he is right now, you know, some, you know, his heritage may have gotten him in the door. But he has an undeniable talent, a really good eye. He's creative. I'm a fan.
Yeah.
But the other thing too, I you know, and he told me, and I think if you go on his socials, he often like hints at this. But because he was on the road with the Grateful Dead as a kid, you know, like it was like his, you know, dad's work, and so he would be running around with Tritsy looking for ground scores in the parking lot, you know, as 8-year-old kids. With the crew would pay them money for what they'd be like, oh, you found this bag of something we can't tell you about. Here's $1, thanks, you know, things like that. But Justin is great. He did direct the Touch of Grey video. He also directed other videos for the Grateful Dead. But Jerry and him bonded. Because Jerry was a cinemaphile, or however you say, you know,
right. I've heard that.
And he and Justin, I mean, Justin's told me stories of them like walking in airports, you know, talking animatedly about obscure films and obscure directors. and Jerry really kind of encouraged him early on, and he always had a little camcorder with him and got a ton of footage. I bet you a ton of his archives must be insane because he's got a ton of stuff. And he continues to do stuff, and he also now he works on he works on The Bachelor.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that
as an editor. Yeah, I don't know if that's as well known, but I mean, you look at the credits and there he is. So yeah, and he did something for Tea Leaf Green. I'm a fan. I mean, like I said, Justin's a true talent as a director. He really is.
Yeah, no, he definitely is. Oh, go ahead, Chet. Oh, he's muted. It's okay. It's not like our 7th episode.
I know. It's like, yeah, whatever. Hey, Benjy.
It's a drug episode. I feel like if you're gonna have an excuse,
we're just technology and drug.
Benjy, what's your dream show? Like, what do you want to do ultimately? Like, what is it? What's the biggest, baddest thing you want to do?
That I want to do, or because you said dream show, right?
Yeah, dream show.
What do you mean, like putting it on, or going to it?
No, putting it on.
Oh, putting it on. Billy and the Kids with Trey. That's my dream. And there was one point where it came very, very close. Because for Billy and the Kids, the thing is that Billy said to me, he stopped playing music while we were writing the book, because he wanted to focus on the book. It took a few years. And he was doing Seven Walkers at the time, and he ended that band. And then, towards the end, he's getting antsy to play. And this was before Dead and Company, so he had no outlet to play. And Fairly Well was being talked about, and he's like, I want to play. And I was like in his ear whispering, in Hawaii, like after a couple glasses of wine, and some weed, I'd say, hey, you really, my friends and the Disco Biscuits and this and that. And he starts, saying, hey, we, let's put together a band. And so I that's when I was like, you have to play with my friend Magner, because at the time the idea was, a keyboardist, and Magner actually played in rehearsals for Dead and Company early on, because the idea was bring in some electronic music. And when Dead and Company first formed the rehearsals, I was there for it. Mike Gordon was there as well. And I had a say in it, and I brought in Magner to play, and the idea was electronic dead music, EDM, but I thought what he does with the Disco Biscuits, and he's a Deadhead, he told me when we were teenagers, he told me that his goal, I think the Disco Biscuits were playing Kahunaville in Delaware, and I was interviewing him. I think not even I used to practice interviewing on the Disco Biscuits. So,
that's cool though, to have that outlet to try it out.
Yeah, but I remember asking him, what's your definition of success? And he said, if I could play Eyes of the World on stage for a paying audience, that's when I know I've made it. And so, Magner's a Deadhead. He was raised in the Grateful Dead and jazz, and so I thought of him, and then Tom Hamilton. This was before J-Rad formed, and I was just like, Tommy would be natural for it. And then Billy said, let's bring in this guy Reed Mathis, because he's Billy's favorite bass player.
Phenomenal bass player.
Yeah, phenomenal. And
I'm sorry. For the record, I have played Eyes of the World in front of an audience for money for like $1. I was hosting an open mic, and it was like me sucking it up on an acoustic guitar while people bought drinks. And I got a cut of the bar. That's it.
Yeah, well, you're successful. That's it.
Yeah,
that's
I'm just saying. You said that's success, so I've done it. So thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, that's exactly right. And so that was Magner's early take, and I remember that was reverberating through my head when Billy's like, "Who should we get?" And then I made that call to him. It was great. I was like, "So you want to play with Bill Kreutzmann?" But adding Trey to that mix for like a show at the Capitol Theater. Something like
I don't know if Trey, as much as I love Trey and I love Billy, I don't know how much their styles jive. No, honestly, because it's not that one's better than the other. It's just Trey always seems to play with
Rock one year.
Well, he
has like a jazzier, like light feather touches drummers, right? Like where it's fast, delicate dynamics. And Bill is like I'm gonna.
Billy.
He beats the drums in a really good way. He's a drummer's drummer, right?
Billy's criticism of Fishman, and Billy loves Fishman and appreciates Fish, but Billy's criticism when they played Red Rocks, Billy said he kept on stage but off mic, kept on leaning over to Fishman going, play harder, play harder.
Right, and I think Trey, at least I could surmise based on his selection of drummers and his love of Fishman, probably likes the more delicate groove rather than like the driving heavy groove that Bill will give you. And I don't think one's better than the other, right? It's a preference. But that said, hearing Trey with the Billy, I think would be phenomenal because you don't get to hear him with that kind of drummer that often.
Yeah, and it's something that Billy. This is something I'll never forget. After the very first set of Fare Thee Well, in front of an audience, they had already rehearsed, and I saw all of that obviously, and and they had been hanging out for a while and all of that. But once you have an audience in the midst, everything changes. So it was after the very first set of the first night in Santa Clara, Trey, when he takes off his guitar, walks right up to Billy, who's walking down from his drum kit, and I walked up to Billy as well at the same time. But then I saw Trey, and I hung back just a few feet, but still in earshot. And Trey goes to Billy, he goes, "You are such a badass," and I'll never forget it.
I'm such a fucking idiot, by the way. I'm like, I never get to hear Trey play with a Billy, and then I was just thinking, I actually literally heard Trey play with Billy. Yeah. I literally saw that like 4 times.
I wish you could see that. Yeah, that Trey and Billy on. Let me see if I can. Maybe I can pull this off. Yeah, totally.
How is Travis's head floating right now?
Solo shot that.
Yeah, you are such a badass.
Man, you are such a badass. All right, it's hot take time, Benji.
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh shit!
I know you were hoping we get away from this or get out of it, but I want to get your takes. We got this little thing going on. I've been doing it for a couple of years now, called Fish Bracket, and instead of getting your take on an individual matchup, I thought it would be more fun and more revealing to get your final 4. If you were filling out the bracket for Fish, your top final 4 songs for the Fish bracket. Now, keep in mind, Tweezer and Yem have retired. Their numbers have been elevated to the rafters, so they're out of the competition.
Because those are the obvious choices, of course.
Of course. I think.
Well, let me preface this by saying that when you did the 3.0, I almost said 4.0. When you did the 3.0 jam bracket, it was I absolutely loved it. I was obsessed with it. I loved it. I still have the playlist on my Live Fish.
It's me too. It's actually one of my favorite playlists. I go to it regularly.
Yeah, me too. absolutely. And it also just, I think that the debate is 3.0, as good as I have friends that, like, oh yeah, anything past whatever year that I think 3.0 is easily some of the best Fish of all time. And I think that Fish is always changing. If they were still playing like they were playing in 90, well, I was about to say if they're still playing like they were playing in 95, would I still be interested? Of course I would. But the point is that one of the reasons we love them so much, and one of the reasons we are such geeks about them, is because they change every single tour. And I wouldn't want anything, but I want that, because then that way it's always new, and it never feels. Every time I listen to Down with Disease, it's a different song. I have my favorites, but it still evolves and it changes. And it's the reason why some of those first set standards we get so bored of. And I See You, which is a great song, we get bored of it because it doesn't change, and
people too, like the jam vehicles aren't the best jam vehicles aren't necessarily the same, right? So people like Tweezer's always a great jam vehicle, but like Down with Disease is not quite where it was at one point. But now these new songs on the studio might not be the greatest songs ever, but they've become absolutely phenomenal jam vehicles, right? Like how many great jams have we seen out of like Everything's Right, or Steam and Thread, like, or any of these songs, right? They're the next generation of jam vehicles And so I don't know if like people are just hung up on the studio side of it or what, but
whenever Fish debuts a new song, everyone hates on it. And going back to Down with Disease, and
not with me, I loved Big Boat until about 2 years ago. Now I fucking hate it. But I was very high on Big Boat when it came out.
I was high on some of those songs for sure. And I remember when Mercury, when they debuted Mercury and Bend, I remember being like, this is Fish's next big one. And some people were like, yeah, some of my friends were like, I don't know. Say all these new ones, Forever People will probably be Forward People will probably be the New Year's Eve gag, right?
You guys see, by the way, how Benji's so good that he has completely skirted the top 4 final 4 answer.
Okay, so
totally
storytelling, ladies and gentlemen.
So David Bowie, the song, not the artist, is definitely in my bracket, and I have it has been since '94. I got into Fish New Year's Eve '93. It was my first show, so since '94, David Bowie's always been a favorite. And lately, I've been going back and rediscovering some. David Bowie's one of the ones that kind of fell by the wayside in recent years. But I've been going back, and some of those '94, '95 Bowies are just so incredible. The
biggest climaxes, I think, in the Fish lexicon were those mid '90s David Bowie climaxes at the end were just
unbelievable
beyond any other songs
and full Type 2 journeys. Like the Man Music Center from I think it's the '95 Man Music Center sits 24. I think I might be off by a day or two, but yeah. That David Bowie is incredible, and so just a lot. Any David Bowie from '94, '95, they're all so different, and they're all amazing.
We need to have a Bowie bracket or climax bracket. I think that would be fun.
Yeah.
All right. So what else you got? You got Bowie. You got a few more up there.
I got Bowie. I think I have to. Let's see. Big Black Fur Creature to some Mars. The Connection. Julius and bouncing on the. Okay, so
I thought he was legit with Big Black Fur Creatures from Mars.
No way. At Nitrous Oxide. No, okay. So Ghost has to be up there. So what do I have? I have David Bowie. I'll put Ghost up there.
I think Ghost is going to do well this year.
I think Ghost is going to do well this year too. And the Ghost from that first weekend that they played it in America. That now they just they did the Virginia Beach. They did the
Drink if you were there. Virginia Beach, first Ghost in America. Drink if you were there. Boom.
Yeah. Boom.
Kev was there. Benjy was there. Kind of doesn't have the impact we were hoping.
On the drive home, this is the truth. Going back to our point from a few minutes ago, on the drive home from that show, my friend turned to me and goes, "What happened to our band?" Because he's like, "Ghost." He's like, "What is this shit?" He's like, well, "It's fun. This isn't Fish. What happened to the Fish?" And then they played the Atlanta Ghost 2 nights later, and 2 weeks later we got the cassettes, and I was listening to it in his living room, and he's like, "Oh, I get it now. I get it."
Yeah.
Okay, I have to hold on.
We're running against the clock. All right, make it quick. Yeah.
Okay, really quick. A spin-off of the Wook and Benjy podcast is the Me and Benjy podcast, where we just talk about Ghost in '97.
Yeah,
like
I'm
just
down.
like
Make it happen.
I'm down.
Yeah.
That Atlanta Ghost I've listened to multiple times.
I'm saying, yes.
Yeah. I mean, this week I've listened to it a lot. It's and the Virginia Beach one. They're incredible.
So you got Bowie, Ghost.
I guess I'll do. Not historically, but I'll do Down with Disease on there just because I get Type 2. I get Type 2 disease. I'll do on there
and
it's tough because these are all like your little children. Like on the one hand, I could go like
it is.
I could totally do like the Divided Sky or a Type 2 Haley's, Type 2 Jam. Type 2 Jam.
Type 2 Jam, all right.
Type 2 Jam is your fourth.
Yeah, Type 2 Jam is my fourth. Yeah. I mean, I like a good Harry Hood pre-chant.
I think Hood has a good shot this year. I think Reba's going to be up there. Ghost will probably be. I personally, and I used to not give my takes. I'm rooting for Fluffhead. I think Fluffhead should be in the championship match this year. But
talk about putting your thumb on the scale.
Oh, nobody
you know,
gives a fuck.
you know what I would
man.
love,
Wow.
you know what I would love to see Fluffhead do is I would love to see a Distro Biscuitification of Fluffhead, where they do, you know, Who Do We Do Into, and then they do another song, and then they do Claude, and then another song, and then Bundle of Joy, in and out, the whole, you know, like
that would be insane. Well, that's kind of where Fluffhead originated, right? It was just a bunch of different sections that they did that with, and
so like a Tweezer Fest, but instead of Fluffhead Fest. That would, you know, that would be sick.
They don't do that enough,
in 1991. Like back in 1991 when they used to just play the separate parts, different parts of the show.
Like Fluff's travels into Mite Song into Bundle of Joy, you know, stuff like that.
So I want to give you the opportunity in case you got anything you want to plug before we wrap this up. This is a great interview, by the way, Benji. I think we're so I will actually. I'm going to plug.
I need to. I should start some of this. Yeah.
You and I are working on something. We're not really. You're not really ready.
We're working on some of this stuff.
But next time you're on, we're gonna have you on soon. We're going to dive into a new project that you have going on. But aside from that, is there anything else you want to plug?
This was actually grown and given to me as a gift from Trixie Garcia, Jerry's daughter, which feels only right. And somehow or other it plays into the plug of what we're working on, but we'll keep that for the future. But yeah,
Trixie footage was dope, by the way.
But yeah, you know, it's interesting because here's what I'll plug. Since this is not it, but this was just a gift from her. It's grown like 15 minutes away, but on her property, and we're in California, so that's of course totally legal. But the Garcia Hand Pit, which is the cannabis, her cannabis brand. It should have been called Garcia Finger Pit, probably. But the Garcia Hand Pit is good. Let's see, what else can I plug? The Mountain Girl, her mom, Mountain Girls Botanicals. Yeah, we could plug that. Surrender to the Throw, which made straight mugs. Electric Beethoven, you should go on Spotify and listen to Maps We Found Under the Ground. The Floby.
We'll tweet out all these plugs also. You have to write them down, everybody.
Remember the Floby? The Floby needs a plug. Freedom Rock, Bill Murray. How can I not give Bill Murray a plug? Oh, actually, here's what I want to plug.
Benji, do you have a preference for a car like Toyota, Honda, Ford, Chevy?
Yes,
a dealership in town?
It's called the Stephen Wright, because I don't the car, because I don't know if you remember, if anybody else listening is as much of a dork as we are, but in 1996, the very best triangle player to ever play with Fish was Stephen Wright, is a comedian. So he came on stage to play triangle with Fish, and then he went on Conan O'Brien, and Conan O'Brien asked him if he had anything to plug, and he plugged Billy Breeze by Fish. He said, here's a new album, not by me, but by Fish. So I would like to plug Stephen Wright, the comedian.
Awesome. All right, Benji, I'm gonna keep things. I gotta run, but it was fucking brilliant talking to you again.
For 5K.
Yeah, man. You look at me. I'm obviously running 5Ks on the reg.
Well, cheers.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
I thought it was 5K. I thought it said 5K.
Talking to Benji is just, oh my God, I love it. We could talk to him every week. Yeah. All right, let's fit in one more bit, and then maybe we'll get out of here.
And now, Heads in Space. Heads in Space. Heads in Space. Heads in Space.
Oh God, it was so. Hey, who's this? Man, what a night. Fucking those candies are so strong.
Hey, Benji.
Hey, Benji, what's going on?
Benji.
Hey guys, are we gonna do this? We're gonna do this.
Yeah.
Right?
What? Wait,
Am I on
what?
time?
Wait, what?
Yeah.
You were just here, weren't you?
Right?
Didn't
We're
we
gonna do
just
the show,
it?
right? Today's the day, right?
Oh my god.
I'm
Wait,
confused.
you wait. Oh shit! You
Who
wanted
were
me
we
to
just
come on
talking
and-
to?
I thought he was there.
Well, I'm ready. I have my notes ready. Everything.
All right, let's do it.